Hey, sports parents. We haven't met, my name is Jonathan Corona, and I'm the host of the show. Today is a soapbox issue for me. One of my biggest pet peeves in the youth sports space right now is how everything parents don't like has been labeled daddy ball. Yes, dad coaches, mom coaches, prioritizing their kids over everyone else on the team happens way too often, but there's also another side that many don't see. I'd argue that more often than not, the coach's kid has a harder experience than anyone else on the team. They're the first ones to the field and the last ones to leave, not because they want to be, but because their parent is the coach and they have to be. The kid is also usually coached harder than the other kids because the parent coach is going out of their way to not show favoritism. So today, we're going to talk about the other side of daddy ball. The side people on the internet don't complain about because they likely haven't paid attention to it. Joining us is Julie and Audrey McCann. Julie played soccer at Wake Forest and has won 3 state titles at the high school level, and she's coached at that elite club space as well. Audrey is Julie's daughter and one of her players, both at the club level when she was younger and now as a high school athlete. She's a senior this year and is planning to play college in the fall next year. Before we get to all that, though, I just want you to know when we recorded the episode, the interview, my mic, this good one, got disconnected, so you only hear my internal mic, so it doesn't sound as crisp as normal, but it's a great interview, so I hope you stick around for that. If you like the show today, we're going to ask that you rate us and review us wherever you're listening. If you're listening to Apple Podcasts, writing up a small review would be a huge help. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Most of all, if this episode helps you in any way, the best thing you can do is share it with a friend. With all that out of the way, here's my conversation with Julie and Audrey McCann. We're here with Julie and Audrey. Julie and Audrey, go ahead and say hey to everybody.
Hello.
Hi.
I told Audrey before we started recording that her only goal today is to roast her mom, and because I think that'll make good content, so we'll see where it goes. We typically start every episode off with having the guests introduce their kids or their parents, and we talk about what it was like being mom or kid to them, but that's what this entire episode's about, so I'm going to blow right past that and help us get to the good stuff. If you skip through the intro, here's what today is about. I hate the term daddy ball. And I understand where it came from, but it's turned into this catch-all that whiny parents use to complain about anything they don't like about a coach. Daddy ball does exist. There are parent coaches who give their kids special treatments or opportunities. But the truth is, most parent coaches are actually harder on their kids because they don't want to appear they're showing favoritism. So today, we're actually talking to a mom and her daughter, who is also her player, about the other side of daddy ball. So I want to start big picture. We're going to jump in the deep end from the get-go. Julie, what's the
Yes.
hardest part of coaching your own kid? And you've done it since Audrey was younger. So you've done her even from
Right.
the club all the way to high
Yeah.
school. So what's been the hardest part of that?
So I think it changes obviously as they get older, right? I mean, coaching an 8-year-old is different than coaching a 17-year-old, right? I mean, because naturally you parent differently, you coach differently. So different things affect. But inevitably, I think over time, the two biggest things, and they probably are pretty close that I can't separate them, is the blurred lines between parent and coach, which is, obviously it's you have dual roles, right? It's confusion for your child. Maybe they don't know when you're talking to them as a parent or when you're talking to them as a coach. There's no definitive line in the sand that you could ever draw. I don't know any coach parent that could ever do that and make it very firm and definitive. It's always going to be blurred. And then also this weaves right into that. There's a high emotional investment, right? Because that's your child and you deeply or emotionally want the best for them. You want them to succeed, but then at the same time, you have to be objective and you have to do your job as a coach, especially as they get older. And, not everything's going to go their way. Right. And you have to still be able to pull back and evaluate them from that perspective. So I think it's those two things are probably hand in hand the hardest for sure.
I don't know if it's happened, but when you've had to pull her off the field, let's say in high school, let's keep it now, like something's not going well and you had to pull her out of the game. How have you had this? Has it been possible to separate coach and mom in those moments when you have to say, hey, this isn't going well. Come off the field. I've got to do something, and then send her back in later.
Well, I think, we actually did have a moment. I think she's already smiling. I don't know if she'll remember that she was
Oh,
laughing.
her head.
She'll remember this
If you're
one.
listening and not watching, she's smiling with a head going back.
Yeah,
So
but
she knows
she's
where you're
got
going.
a magic eye roll that every 17-year-old teenager has. But I think the moment, I would say one of the ones that stands out to me that we was really difficult because it was, like I said, emotions were high anyway because it was a state championship match. Was a year or so ago. We were playing the state championship and we were up, and and Audrey has to take a lot of set pieces like corners and free kicks and things like that, and we were up, and in the moment, because we were up, the whole team and the other team were kind of like, there's minutes on the clock, not a big deal. Whereas my mentality was amp it up, like let's get one while they're not paying attention. And Audrey, being the person who takes the set piece, had the ball in her hands. So I'm losing my marbles, like, get on it, move, move. I'm like yelling at all the. And so Audrey took that as I'm yelling directly at her, like, what are you doing? You're moving slow. Cause I'm just like, I'm like throwing my hat, like, hurry up, seconds, cause I see the other team not paying attention, but also our team's not paying attention. So it was directed to the team, but like she just was like, what are you doing? Like, you're losing your marbles at me. And so she got upset with me, and then I had to like redirect and say, like, look, like, because I mean, obviously the whistle blew, she took the corner kick, nothing came of it, but she was still upset. And I had to be like, look, like, you can't go into the locker room like this. This is not, you're reading this wrong. This is not about you. This was about the team. Just take a minute, breathe, relax. This was a coaching moment. This was not about, Audrey, you screwed up, and she was explaining the situation. I was like, and I just knew that from parent and coach, like sometimes players just need a minute, right? Like
Right.
you get upset and you're fired up and you just need a minute and you need space. And she needed space from me as her mom. She needed space from me as her coach, just to kind of just to calm down and realize like what had went down and that there was a whole lot more game to play. And then, I think with that time, I allowed her to find some space. Obviously I wasn't all up in her face after in the kickoff in the halftime match chat either. But I think, that was a time where a space and recognizing that, okay, she is really mad at me for a different reason, and so in that regard, I think space was how I handled it.
Audrey, what's your side of that story?
Um, it was definitely a heated game. There was a lot of emotions going around. I was getting a lot of just tension from my team. I put a big role on myself, and so I like to have that type of role for my team. I like to be that type of leader, but it also comes with a lot of pressure, and also it comes with a lot of pressure from my mom, let alone just like as a team as a whole. So having those pressures of a heated game from your team, and then seeing your mom throw her hat on the floor because you didn't take a free kick as fast as she wanted it to, it was obviously I definitely think I overreacted with just like taking her reaction and thinking about it in the wrong sort of way and interpreting it the wrong way. But it definitely, in the heat of the moment, was not something I was happy about. So, but after we talked in the locker room, it was more of just like focusing in on the real point, was just that we need to focus on the team. It wasn't about me or our relationship. It was genuinely just a coaching moment. And later during the second half, it was a lot better. So.
But you were probably, what, 15, 16 at that point?
Yes, I had just turned 16.
Okay. So a little bit of maturity, like leader on the team, have been playing your entire life, have gotten to high school, and even at 16, it felt like mom yelling at you and not coach. So the story I tell is this last spring, I was coaching my 8-year-old, and he plays center forward, and not the most athletic kid in the world, not the fastest kid in the world, but he's smart. And so he picks and chooses when he's going to run. He has a little math brain, so he sees triangles in his mind, and kind of there were a couple plays that I felt like he gave up on a little earlier than he should have. And so it's rec league, so everyone has their rotation. They're all gonna sit out at some point each half. I crouched down to him and talking just like this, like, "Hey, buddy, I need you to run a little harder, and, like, you coulda gotten those balls." And I see, like, almost tears welling up in his eyes. And, like, he's like, "I am
Aw,
running hard." So, like,
poor guy.
I'm like, "He's seeing dad right now, he's not seeing coach." So I had to go over to my assistant coach, who is the fire chief of the next town over and was a Marine. So that's his countenance. That's the way I'm like, "Hey, can you help Coach Owen?" "Yeah." He goes and tells Owen, "Hey, if you don't try hard, I'm gonna kick you in the nuts." And Owen goes out and scores a goal when he goes back in, but he needed that other voice to come in and say that because Mike's not his coach, or Mike's not his dad, excuse me, Mike's his coach.
Right.
Jonathan's his dad, and he couldn't separate the 2. It's one of the reasons why I'm not coaching him this fall, because I realized the kid just needed a different voice to hear so that he can get better, because I've coached him so much recently. So it's an interesting dynamic that I think a lot of people don't realize is happening on the field when they see parents coaching people. And kinda on that front, kinda Audrey, like, what do you wish people understood more about being the coach's kid that they usually don't understand?
Um, I think it's more of just like you don't obviously there's like a stereotypical like the coach's kid gets to do whatever they want to do. They have no rules. I genuinely think it's the complete opposite. It might just be because my mom works like that. She's not a person like when it comes to sports, like you have to like hard work beats talent. She says that all the time. No matter who you are, even if you're my kid, you're still gonna work your way to where you need to be on to prove yourself onto the team. So when I first got into the varsity team as a seventh grader, you can imagine how many people were like, "She's a seventh grader on varsity. It's because her mom's a coach," and all of those things were said, and it was kind of just like, you can only do so much to prove yourself. So there's only like to do so many things to prove yourself on your team. It's kind of just like you always have to have a high standard of what you're doing. You can never crash out. You always have to have your head on your shoulders. You always have to be talking to players at a good level, which can be hard for me sometimes. But being true to yourself through that is definitely the hardest part, which is knowing your worth of your team doesn't reflect on having your mom as your coach, knowing that you do deserve to be on the team. So,
I'm gonna put you on the spot a little bit, and this might get a little uncomfortable, and I'm hoping it does because 'cause it'd be fun. Um, Mom's job is teacher and coach where you go to school. At any point in this process, 'cause you've now played for her for 5 years because it's private school, you're able to play varsity at a younger age. Have you ever been like, "I kinda wanna transfer. I kinda wanna go play for someone else. I don't wanna play," like, obviously you didn't, but has that thought popped up? Have you guys had that conversation because you wanted to go play
Yes.
for someone else?
um,
You
it
can
wasn't so much of like transferring. I mean, I never saw her. She teaches lower school, so I don't see her the day to day stuff. It's really only the soccer piece. Um, there definitely have been plenty of moments where we're butting heads at practice, and it continues when we get home. So that's kind of the hardest part. So that's where we were thinking maybe another school would potentially be better, just so she can do her thing and I can do my thing without having that sort of conflict. But we went through it, and now it's kind of just one of those things where like I would not want any other coach. Like seeing my friends that go to different schools with their coaches versus my mom, she knows what she's doing. Like I have full trust in her. Seeing my friends on my team love her as a coach makes me not want to be anywhere else. But freshman and sophomore year, there's definitely that thought where maybe different coach would be okay.
Alright, there's 2 pieces I wanna ask you about there, Julie. You just heard your 17-year-old daughter say she wouldn't wanna play for anyone other than you? What's that bring up in you?
Well, it makes me happy, of course. I know that it wasn't the easiest road to get there. I think that, you know, I think, like I said, it's different when you're coaching your kid when they're 10 and 9. And like going back to your point, they need external feedback, right? And so when I was coaching club, I could have been Audrey's coach all the way through. I coached my son. I coached and actually my other daughter also plays for me, who's only 14. So she's kind of going through those growing pains that Audrey went through. And so, and coached in this area for a long time. That's another thing they have to deal with because it's, oh, you're Coach McCann's kid because I've coached here for so long. Like they're constantly dealing with this kind of stigma, good or bad, whatever that is. And so I think that I purposely have made it a point that, like, yes, I want to be part of your soccer. But at the end of the day, if you feel like it is not good for you and you're not going to be your best and we can't handle the blurred lines and everything else, then mom's going to back out because my number one job is to be your mom, not to be your coach. Right. That's my number one. Like I'm there all day long for you. And I will happily go coach plenty of other teenagers in this county or anywhere else if you are not feeling good about this relationship and about how it works. And if there are problems, then what do we do to need to make it work and, you know, and all those things. So that's kind of the journey that we've been on. But I think definitely the thing that's made it work is that open, honest conversation and hearing her say those things, knowing that we've had like our ups and downs and then too, just, you know, like I've worked really hard to make sure she gets external feedback. Like you said, like I might have something that I really want to say to her in the heat of the moment, but I've got an awesome assistant coach in Nuo Johnson. And I'm like, Nuo, like Audrey's not doing this. And then fortunately we think a lot alike. You'd be like, yes, totally agree. And then he'll pull her to the side and he'll say those things. And like you said, it comes off differently. Right. So a lot of times it's things that I was thinking and wanted to say to her, but it just came through a different channel. Right. Or it was written on the board from a different person. And so I find that helps a lot. But but hearing her say it after everything feels really good. I hope that my 14-year-old says it later. I don't know if she will. But yeah, like we always revisit that conversation, like, you know, because it's 4 months of really intense 4 months where they're with mom and it's high emotions, right? It's you know, we have a really, it's not, you know, I know we were talking before about like your high school team. And, you know, our high school team is different in that, you know, a lot of these girls want to play at the next level. They play all year round at really high levels. And so when they come for high school, you know, they're like, hey, I'm in it. Like, let's go. You know, they're high intensity. So those emotions are running high. And it's, you know, and plus they're teenage girls on top of it. So I think all of that, it's just, it's really good to hear because like I said, mom is number one, coach is number two, but you know, obviously when I'm on the field, she knows I have to be her coach first, you know, but at the end of the day, if that coach relationship isn't panning out, I would happily put the coach shoes to the side if she wanted me to.
So go home back to freshman, sophomore year. You have coached in our area forever. How close were you to firing off the text message to the coach of your choice to say, hey, what would you think about Audrey coming over?
I mean, you know, it's funny because at the time before I had her for high school and I was doing club stuff, you know so many other coaches and it's like, well, what are you going to do and where's she going to go? And, you know, I purposely kept those conversations away from Audrey. I think that every parent should actually do that. Like there should be no sideline banter that your kid should ever hear. She might hear like some stuff like tactical conversations or something like that, which I think is helpful. But as far as like my subjective opinion about coaches or about players or about programs, I really work hard to keep like, that's not going to help her in any way. Right. So when she was a freshman and sophomore, I mean, you know, like every high school coach wants a good player coming into their program. Right. And so where we live, she could go to Tabor or she could go to Reagan. That would be the two places that she would go. And so, you know, like it's always that way, right? When there's a rising freshman, it's like, what good players, right? Doesn't matter what sport it is, what good players are in that area, who's going to get them. But because I was already at Forsyth and I already had her in middle school, I think, like I said, unless she said something to me otherwise, it was like, no, you're not getting your paws on her. Sorry. Like, I know what she's worth.
Mama Bear got to come out there a little bit.
Well, and as a coach, I knew her her value as a player. So I was like, yeah, you're not getting your hands on her. Sorry.
That's so great. Hey, we're going to come back talking with Julie and Audrey in just a second. But before we do that, we're going to take a quick break to share some resources with you that will help you parent your kids no matter the age they're at. So we'll share those and we'll be back in just a minute.
Have you ever showed up at the wrong field at the right time? Hey, my name's Zoe and I've got 3 athletes on club and travel teams, and that's happened to me one too many times. So 2 years ago, I created a new app called Torgo, exclusively for sports parents. It imports schedules from all the different team apps, as well as your personal calendar to keep the entire family, including your kids, on the same page. Go to orgohq.com, download directly from the App Store or Google Play, and make Orgo part of your winning routine. Get the right people to the right places on time.
Hey, it's Jonathan. If you haven't signed up for the Weekend Playbook yet, why not? It is a short, no-fluff email that shows up every Friday morning with actual useful tips for parents like you so you can stay grounded before, during, and after the game. And right when you sign up, we'll send you 4 incredible resources from Positive Coaching Alliance just for subscribing. The link is down in the show notes. Just go subscribe. We're back with Julie and Audrey McCann. Audrey, I'm going to start with you on this one. When you're coached by mom harder than your teammates, because that's just what comes with it, or maybe you're held to a different standard because mom's the coach and she wants to make sure everything's above board. How does that feel as both player and daughter?
I think I'll start with the player. As a player, it's more of, I think I can somewhat now versus earlier on, I can tell, okay, my coach needs me to do this and needs me to do that for my team. And because she knows I'm a leader, she knows I want to lead my team to great things. So that side of it is okay. I like, me personally, for any coach of mine, I like to have direction, structure, sometimes get yelled at if I need to, be put in my place if I need to. But on the other side of that, being a daughter and getting yelled at, that's the hard stuff to pick out, is like, sometimes, is she really pulling me aside because she's upset with me, or is she really pulling me aside because I really messed up as a player? So that can be hard to depict, but there wasn't any moments where it was like really crushing of like, she's really upset at me. It was always, we would talk it out, realize that she was never trying to hurt me. She's always going to be my mom first. And once I told her how it made me feel, if it made me feel as a player, I would tell my coach, or if it hurt me as, her daughter, then I would tell her and we would discuss it as mom and daughter. So the flipping of hats from mom to coach was hard to figure out, but now it's more of, okay, I need to respect my mom first, and then I also need to respect my coach as well.
When were you able to make that switch? Because she did coach you at the younger ages and she's been your coach since 7th grade. So like, it was probably a process, will be my guess. But like, what age did you start being able to make those distinctions?
This past season. Yeah, very recently. So
16.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll let Audrey go ahead. You go ahead, Audrey.
I'm
very curious what you're going to say, by the way.
I mean, it definitely helped having, our last state championship, but I think it was more of this season that really helped me see the mom side out of her. Most of the time, we are at a very competitive program at Forsyth, and so we are go, go, go all the time. So I think the coach side of her is out a lot of the time. So now that I was hurt and got to sit back and look at the way she coaches, and also I think it helped to see how she deals with my younger sister, really got to helped me open my eyes of how she chooses to coach, but also realizes that she is a mom, and I understand how hard that is. And it's hard to receive just as much. But definitely recently, being able to sit back and see her coach my sister, and how, my sister would react to it in similar ways as me, but realizing my mom wasn't really doing anything, was definitely an eye-opening thing. So not very, very recently was when I was able to, but I'm happy that it happened, even though it wasn't the best way I'd like that to happen, but I'm glad that I did.
I just want to give some space there, see what you were going to say, Julie.
Oh, well, no, like I said, I think it's always a process, right? Like, I mean, coaching your own kid is a field of landmines, right? Especially when they're teenagers, because just being a parent of a teenager is hard enough, right? And then you're doubling it, and then, when they're young, you don't want them, like, because when they're young, right, you don't want them to quit, right? Like we've talked about this before, Jonathan, like where you just want them to give them a lot of really good opportunities. You want to make it fun so they keep coming back. And then once they've decided, like, hey, this is my thing, this is my passion. Okay, now we're going to educate you. And it's not always going to be rosy, but if you love it, you'll get over the humps, And so I think that's kind of the hard part, is like you're growing up and helping them get over the humps, but you're also like teaching them how to be a player through those humps, right? Because, 6 months out of the year, they don't have me as their coach. They are playing at a high level somewhere else. And so like I'm full on mom at that point, and I'm watching somebody else coach them and seeing how they engage.
What's that like?
That has its own challenges, right? I mean, I think that's really difficult when you're a coach and you have spent a big part of your life being a coach, and then seeing somebody else coach your kid, because every coach argues about like, well, I think we should do this, and I think we should do this. I mean, like, like nobody can watch any sports match without tactically saying their opinion, right? So especially coaches, we're the worst. So I think at the end of the day, it's just understanding that, like, that their mission is not to cause harm. Their mission is to make Audrey better. And like I said earlier, I'm never, ever going to, even in the toughest situations, and I'm sure Audrey can name a few, where I felt like this is not like, I'm just not feeling like Audrey's getting her best environment. That happens. We got through it, and that's life though, isn't it? Like, you're not always going to be handed, Audrey's probably laugh at me right now because my big thing is about like life lessons. Like, you're going to have a boss someday that you don't agree with. You're going to have teammates now that you may not be your best buddies, but you're going to have to play with them. Well, guess what? That's the same way when you get older, And so I think at the end of the day, it's always been like, okay, Audrey, like, so you're not digging this coach. Let's talk about what's good. Like, let's, okay, so that happens. All right. But at the end of the day, their job is not to make your life miserable. So I try to step back and realize that the reason why that person is coaching, even if I disagree with them, there is still very good intent. Right. There is. And that's tough. It's really tough, especially if your kid's unhappy. So it's, while though it's great to be their coach, I also see the other side of that external feedback and how they take it. And if anything, I get to learn a lot of lessons from other coaches, right? Like I watch, like, like how would I handle that situation? Like, would I've handled that way with Audrey, or would I've said something else, or would I've handled it with that other player, or would I've said, or maybe like, oh, I really like what that coach said. That was really good. Like, look how my kid reacted. I'm going to use that. Like, I love stealing good ideas,
Yeah. Like the boss I worked for in college said, there's no such thing as an original idea. We just take what other people have done and adapt it for our own stuff.
So true. So true. I mean, like every good idea, maybe not every, but I would say 99% of the good ideas that I've gotten came about from some form that I either experienced as a player, or I got from another coach, or like I said, I'm lucky that my kids play what I love and what I spend my time doing. So I got to see other good coaches around them and take from what they've done, So it's been a give and take for sure. But But yeah, I still have a long road to go coaching my kids. I don't know, like maybe you should interview again in 4 more years when my freshman is the last one out of the house. And we'll see. Audrey's got one more with me, and then she's done with me.
So this wasn't in our notes, but maybe just think of it. The reason I'm interviewing you is because our mutual friend, Breland Ashworth from McKnight, he told me, "Hey, you've got to interview Julie because she's great." And then you brought on Audrey. So what I've learned about your family is that you all are going to the same gym together now. So Audrey, what has it been like watching someone coach your mom in the gym and like to see her react to someone coaching her after being coached by her for so many years?
Well, I just recently joined, just because I just got cleared to be able to do stuff. But having somebody which train my mom when I think she thinks she knows everything already when it comes to weightlifting.
I knew she'd say that.
It's just a little, I mean, it's different. It makes me feel good about myself because then somebody knows more than her. So having that thought is definitely like, okay, well then she doesn't know everything. So, and so I'm going to listen to this person more than I will listen to her when it comes to working out and stuff like that. But I think it's cool that our whole family on the other side of it is going. I think it's a thing for us to do together. One, to just be able to do it together, and two, to like grow with each other because we all have our separate goals, but going at this one place that we really, really like so far is really cool to me.
That's fun. And I thought of that as we were talking. I can imagine after mom's coached you for so many years. I know the guys down there. I know how they coach. I could just imagine when Nathan or Scott or Braylon tell you to put some more weight on there, you're just over in the corner giggling at mom having to do more. Audrey, you mentioned a minute ago the landmines, and I wanted to come back to it. There's the big giant landmine of coaching that you don't want to play favoritism towards your own kid. And Audrey has played for you at the high school level since she was in middle school, pretty much. So she probably wasn't at the level she is now when she first started. So how did you navigate that landmine of like playing time? Of, am I giving her more time because I'm inherently invested in her future more than other people? Like what was that internal tension like in you?
It's really difficult because, I think it's difficult on every coach coaching their kid because I think every coach that's worth their salt wants to be as objective as possible and as fair as possible and help every child grow and have a great experience, right? But inherently, like you said, you know that you're going to undercoach or overcoach or have those moments, and other people are watching that all go down on top of it, right? And so when she was young, she was still a good player, but that's really difficult to prove. And so I think Audrey spoke to it well earlier. I've said from when they were really young, it doesn't matter who you're playing for. If you want to prove yourself, it has to come from hard work, consistency, and performance. And those three things are in a nutshell, right? Like if you are not working hard in specifically practice, right? Like if you're not getting it done day in and day out in practice, and then I turn around and start you, how can you prove any worth, right? How have you shown that you've earned anything? If you want to shut up the critics, prove it through effort, right? And then after effort, prove it through consistent performance, right? Like if you are consistently given opportunities and consistently performing, how can anybody argue that, right? Like, because, right, we're all given opportunities, but I really think it's about what you do with that opportunity. Okay, you're given the opportunity to be on varsity. Now, what are you going to do with it, right? Like, okay, so you're working hard in every practice and you're putting goals in the net. Okay, then you've earned now a start. Now, let's see what you do with that opportunity. Okay, and let's see what you do with that. Oh, let's see some sparks of goodness there. Let's give another opportunity. And so I think, it's hard because, that has to build over time. And like Audrey said, there was definitely some critics that she had to hear, I think more probably from the peer side. than the other side. Maybe I'm sure there was some rumblings up in the stands from parents that didn't all make its way down to my ears. But, I think that Audrey and my other daughter has had to do the same thing, has proven it through those three things, like work hard every day in practice. Because if you don't, you're just asking for more criticism, right? And so I think that's the pressure she was talking about. But if you do it, there's not much they can say. There's not much they can say if you're stopping the best attacker, or if you're putting goals in the net, or if you're the first person to finish on a fitness test. What can people say? That's what any coach would do, is start that person, right? So I think that's, and unfortunately, that is the peer pressure. That is the pressure that coaches' kids feel, is that they have to be the best. They have to put forth the most effort. They have to perform, because if not, the critics will be the first to speak.
On that note, Audrey, mom just mentioned the classmates and teammates. What have you felt over the years? Have you had to deal with stuff like the little bitey comments? I mean, we all know girls in middle school. Like, have you had to deal with that throughout the years, or has that not been there?
Um, there was originally, it was mainly when I first was offered the opportunity to go on varsity at a young age. I mean, not many people get the opportunity to do that. We didn't have the best numbers because we're a small school, so we usually do now pull from our middle school. Obviously, you have to show your worth for that. So we would start practicing with the varsity, and I loved it. And me and some of my other friends got the same opportunity, and so we were all excited. But then we had some people that were not necessarily, they weren't trying out for soccer, they weren't playing soccer or anything like that, but they were just offered regular middle school sports, and you're like, how are these 7th graders going to play on a high school varsity team playing with 18-year-olds? So that was the hardest part, was just saying, my friends got the opportunity, but, Audrey's only on there because of her mom. So having that part of making myself feel a little bit smaller for that was definitely the hard part, but it went away real quick after we went to the state champs that year. So that was good.
I love that little smile that came out. Yeah, just that, like, yeah, we put them in their place. Like, you know who you are. Audrey, you play the same sport as mom, but you play a different position than mom. Was that by choice, or is that what you grew into? Did you not want to be in mom's shadow, or like, talk me through how that came about as you were coming through this, like your years playing?
Through my years playing, I have maybe done every position there is to be played on the field, even goalie. But I think that's just one of the things you do just to find your fit. And so my club team, when I first got into ECNL, I was playing center mid or the 9, which my mom played. And that was, I thought it was fun. I thought it was a great time. I loved doing it. I didn't, for once, not like my mom's position. But then my team was having some issues in our back line. So my coach talked to me and was like, we need a strong center back, and would you be willing to fill the position and just see how it goes? And ever since that game, I've been center back. So, and I did not like it at all at first because I wanted to score goals. I wanted to get forward, and, center backs typically, the most they'll go up for in the other attacker's box is to, for a corner to get a header or something like that. So that was a hard thing to adjust to. I was not being able to go forward and be with my team and help score goals. But now, as I've gotten older, I've gotten to love it because I'm able to be physical, 1, and 2, I'm able to organize my team, which helps the leader side of me be able to control the way my team is working. and also just to keep us from getting scored on. So that is definitely one of the things that I really like to do. But I never thought, like, there was never a thought of not wanting to play my mom's position. It was more of being in the same spotlight as my mom. Like, wow, your mom played at Wake Forest. Like, are you going to go to Wake Forest? And stuff like that. Just being the first daughter was one of the pressures of, playing college soccer or being at that next level, being just as good, which I think it was more of just like a challenge I saw as a challenge. Like, I'm not going to not play soccer because of those intense moments, but I just took it as a challenge, and I was like, yeah, I am going to be just as good, and I am going to be better than her. So, but it was never positionally. It was more of being in the same spotlight and going down the same path as her.
Mom, as someone who played nowhere near the level you did, I was a keeper growing up. So I secretly hoped one of my kids would want to play keeper. And like Liv played like twice. It was back in U8 when we were playing co-ed. Both kids were on the same team. Owen kicked the ball, hit Liv in the face. She's never wanted to play keeper since.
Oh,
Owen's tried to play a couple times and he doesn't want to bend over. He only wants to use his feet. So I'm like, I've got to let that part be die and just support them in what they want to do. But for you, like as great of a player as you were, obviously you just love the fact that your daughter plays soccer in general. But
yes.
there's a piece of you that I'm sure was like, you sure you don't want to do it? You sure you don't want to follow? Like, how was it inside of you dealing with like setting aside your wants and desires for your like that you would want for her to let her chase her version of it?
I think the coach side stepped in there for me when I saw just the skills that Audrey possessed, because it wasn't. I think the coach handled it well. He called us because it was right at the cusp of where she starts getting looked at by colleges, so it was a pretty big shift. Um, and it was like, I think these are the reasons why I think Audrey could be shifted there, and I totally agreed with his reasons. I mean, obviously that helps if I didn't agree with them, but I thought that, and for me, just my pedagogy is I think that the more experienced players can get in different positions, the better the athlete, the better the soccer player they're going to be. Right. And for better or worse, Audrey has learned probably through osmosis in the baby, like in the little carrier. She has watched so many games, all of my kids, because they have just always been either on a sideline watching or we're watching games on TV. Thankfully now they choose to watch the games and not me, forcing them to go. But I think that at the end of the day, it was like, okay, like technically Audrey gets it. I get it. And you are going to become better by doing this. It is difficult when you say, okay, all the glory stuff is not going to happen for you now. Because you literally are saying you're going to, you're just, you're not going to be the person that everybody's lifting up on their arms all the time, right? You're going to be the person. I mean, literally the running joke that I always say to players is you are the mom of the team. You're the person that when it goes down and you're the last hurrah, like you're the last player. And unfortunately, the thing that they'll see the most is your mistakes, because that's what when a center back messes up, everybody sees it. But when a forward messes up, there's always another chance, right? Like for the most part, I mean, yes, there's those moments where they miss the penalty to miss the game or they miss the shot, but it's just heart wrenching when a defender just makes that mistake that costs the game, right? The keepers feel the same. I'm sure you can relate to that. And so I think that's interesting, like, that Audrey's created this new relationship with keepers now because they both have that, they understand that emotion and that investment of being the last line of defense. And so I think it's been interesting to kind of see her shift in that way, in that perspective, and respect the game in a different way. But yeah, it is difficult when she switched because that, I had to remind her, like, look, this job that you're doing, not everybody's going to come over and pat you on the back and be like, woohoo, like that's not what this position is about. But everybody who knows the game of soccer or football, or whatever you want to call it, knows how important that position is. And so I think that was the message that I had with her was like, understand that this is a compliment. and we'll see how it goes, but I was just happy that she took it and wasn't like, this is awful, I can't believe my coach is making me do this, I'm so mad, but she gave the right answer. I think that was probably what I was more proud of, was like, you know what, coach, if that helps us win, I'll do it. So I mean, as a coach, that's what you want your kid to say, right?
Yeah. That's so great. All right. I would love to keep talking about all these things, but we do have to respect time. So I'm going to end on the same question we ask every week. Or actually, I like to end on encouragements. So, Audrey, I'm going to start with you. For parents who are listening to this, maybe they're coaching their own kids, or maybe they're on a team with a coach who is coaching their kids. What would you encourage those parents with, having gone through this as the daughter of the coach?
I would just encourage them to be patient, especially if they're young. They're gonna go through a phase of not knowing who's who at the time, the coach or a parent, and that's really hard for the kid, but also the parent. Their relationship will go through ups and downs. It's not going to be perfect. So being patient through that, but also just willing to listen of your kid, willing to listen to your kid through all the hard times, even if it's about the sport, turning off the coaching hat for that little moment to be the parent, and then stepping back into the coach's shoes after the conversation is very, very helpful. And I think it helped me and my mom's relationship a ton. So being patient and just being able to listen is what I would say.
That's really great. Julie, what do you have for people?
I think Audrey touched on it for sure. I think it's patience, and I would add space. It's really difficult to find space when you're with your kid at practice and then you come straight home with them, right? Like there's always the funny conversation about the awful car ride home, right? Well, you just doubled your ante when you coach your kid, right? Like it's not even just the car ride home anymore. Now you're coming home, and it's really, I said before, like I try hard not to talk about other things, that dynamics that are going on with the game after the game is over. Like we might be like, oh my gosh, so and so's goal was so great. Like it might be something like that. But if there's intense moments, I think that you really have to follow suit to the parent perspective of like, okay, we are on our way home now. And as much as you want to vent or talk about more or have that little heart to heart that maybe it might like settle in, guess what? It is not. They are not in a place to receive it. They are not in a place, you're probably not in the best place to give it because you're riled up. And I really think you have to go back to that whole thing of that parenting moment of like, because I'm a big believer in like, don't talk to your kid in the car. Oh my God, don't do it, And so I try to remind myself as a coach, like, give them space. Like, if as much as I might want to be like, like, I can't believe that you, whatever, sometimes it's something petty too. Like, I can't believe you left your cleats at the field. Oh my gosh. Like that's a total parenting moment. Right. But because the lines get blurred, right? I just have to really be like, you know what? Now is not the time to talk about it. Like, let's just give ourselves like at least 24 hours, take a breath, have some space, let them go to their room. I purposely, when she wants to go to La Coretta with the team, for the most part, I might go for a little bit, but I don't go every time on purpose because I want, like, have your space, be with your team. And I say that to the girls. I'm like, I think I'll miss this time, guys. I'm going to let Audrey and Maddie have a moment. And I think the team gets that. Like, they need to have some moments without coach. But I don't let them always go. I want them to know I want to be there. But I get it. Like, Audrey and Maddie need to have moments without me. Because when I'm there, like we said, that line gets blurred. Like, oh, my God, my mom's here with my team dinner, But the girls don't see it that way. And so, like I said, I think space. I would definitely advise – give them their space. It really reaps rewards, and it allows you both to kind of decompress and go back to mom and daughter, or dad and daughter, or dad and son, whatever.
That's so great. Guys, thanks so much for joining us this week. I appreciate it.
Thanks,
course.
Jonathan.
Thank you.
That's it for today's episode. As a reminder, if you want your weekend playbook, head to healthysportsparents.com/playbook or click the link down in the show notes. The merch store is now open as well. That link is in the show notes, or you can go to healthysportsparents.com for that. Every shirt you buy is one step closer to helping the Healthy Sports Parents book get published. If you like the show today, I'm going to invite you to subscribe on your favorite podcast app or on YouTube. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, it would be a huge help for you to write up a small review. If you're on YouTube, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button as well. If this episode has helped you in any way, the best way you can help us grow the show is sharing this episode with a friend. Most of all, enjoy your time with your kids this week. Enjoy watching them play the sport they love. Have a great week, everybody, and we will talk to you soon.